Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Physical Therapy Private Practice Secrets of the Top 10%. My name is Brian Gallagher. I'm your host. And this week I am very fortunate and honored to have the founders of Virtual Sally on our podcast with us. This podcast is intended to be informative, educational, and above all else, not only for you to walk away with a bunch of bright ideas and new knowledge, but to walk away with applicable skills, strategies, advanced technology that can actually leverage your practice into the future of 2024. So I'm not going to rattle on because there's a lot to cover here in this week's podcast. And for those of you on YouTube, you get to see Mark and Wendy, the founders of Virtual Sally. There they are. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I've got some specific questions that I'm going to ask. I'm going to try to think like you all from the audience of what you may want to know. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way we can cover all that in this episode. You're going to have to reach out. You're going to have to get the information. I'm not asking you to reach out for the sake of sales or solicitation. I'm asking you to reach out for the sake of pro survival, for the sake of advancing your practice and seeing you gather the knowledge so you can make an informed, educated decision. I feel there's not as many people in business that I align with that share that value, that share that I'm about your business doing better. And in turn, if you succeed, we will take care of ourselves and succeed. I absolutely love Mark and Wendy. They are strong partners of ours. We are very bonded together for the future. There was a lot of vetting that went on before I hitched my wagon to anybody. So if that means anything to you guys listening out there, take some comfort in that I've done a lot of the front end work for you all. But like I said, let me stop talking and let you hear from them. I'm going to open up with if you guys could just give a little bit of your backgrounds. Let's just go shortly on that. I know Wendy as a therapist and Mark as an entrepreneur and business leader. Just let them see that combination between the two of y'all, and then I'm going to ask about Virtual Sally and the whereabouts and the comings to on that. So we'll start with Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I'm a physical therapist. I've been in practice for actually too many years to say, but 36. Yeah, so a long time. I actually worked for a multi-specialty practice when I came out of school. So I did a little bit of everything: home health, school systems, skilled nursing facilities, outpatient orthopedics, and outpatient orthopedics was what I loved. And so I ended up, after about 6 years there and being director there, I opened, my husband and I opened a practice together, and had that practice for about 30 years. And then we sold that at the end of 2020. But in 2015, we started this product. Actually, just kind of dumb luck started it. I actually had enough of the front desk and the issues that we had going there. I also saw the writing on the wall as far as reimbursements going down and costs going up. And that's only become more and more of a problem. And so we really set out to create something that we could reduce our costs without affecting patient care, because I'm a therapist at heart. So there's a lot of business ideas that come out there. I was like, nah, you can't do that because it just won't work in the therapy environment, because I've lived in that. I've done that. So I know what will work and what won't work. So really wanted that to come across. And as we've gone about this venture, I'll let Mark tell you more about his history, but he's got a lot of tech background, and we've done several tech companies together in the medical therapy space. So we put this together because we figured that if to save the profession, we've got to be able to do something that we can get our hands around and present a product that really comes out there and shows well.
As you guys can tell before you hear from Mark, there is no grass growing under Wendy's feet. So it is not that is not her nature. So everybody strap in because that's about the pace of this podcast. So let's hear from Mark. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mark.
it's very much mutual as well. So I'll keep it very yeah, I've been a serial entrepreneur for over 30 years. And obviously, Wendy and I had our practice together for 30 years. And I've had other technology ventures, software companies as well, that built and sold and moved on. And also was the first franchisee at Five Guys, Burgers and Fries, if you're familiar with that concept. So that was interesting. Ran for mayor, did some crazy stuff. So anyways, I'm thrilled to be on this show today with you, Brian. And we're just excited to talk about Virtual Sally.
That's awesome. Fantastic. So for all those listening, you understand that the main reason is for us to do the podcast and YouTube is for you to walk away with tips for professional success as well as personal growth ideas. So my first question, Wendy kind of touched on it, but I want to just drill into it a little bit. What made you actually lift a finger into developing Virtual Sally? Was it a problem that you were trying to solve, or was it a business idea? Was it some sort of entrepreneurial spirited, let's take advantage of this opportunity? Or was it more of, there's just a problem here and somebody's got to step up and solve it? Wendy?
Yeah, it was definitely the problem that it came from.
Okay.
And I guess if you do a lot of reading on it, that, all good ideas come from a problem that you have to solve. And so, yes, it was definitely a problem. And I always tell the story, the worst words in the world come out of my mouth when the phone would ring before 6 a.m, because I knew it was going to be a front desk person not coming to work. And we were going to have to for the day. We were pulling somebody from their job, or we were not covering it at all up front, which means that we were leaning on the back if we could even get those collections at the front from the back. And we all know if you don't collect at the time of service, then that money becomes half of what it was, or even more than that. We really wanted to find a way to solve that solution but still have that personal touch. I didn't like and today we all think about those kiosks, but I'll have to tell you that we actually formed this product in 2015. So it's hard to go back.
That was going to be my question. We're talking here 2023 on the heels of, turning into 2024, but you're talking 2015. Like, correct. The problem that you were trying to solve has been magnified like tenfold today, and we're going to get into that. So it was really a problem that you were trying to solve. Back to 2015, okay, let's just rewind the hands of time. The problems that I remember in private practice, being in private practice along with you guys, I was in Maryland, you guys are in Virginia, was, for me, it was a lack of consistency. I felt like I was doing adult babysitting. It's like, how many times do I have to go over how to handle a cancellation call? How many times do I have to review that you have to do your cluster booking in the morning and move everybody forward, open up evening slots, later slots of the week? Was that kind of thing. And then the second thing was the time and energy of training. Nowadays, and I just want your opinion, both of you, on this. So if I go back to 2015, that was mine. The lack of consistency was like adult babysitting, and then just the ability to train them, like to have the time to train them, to get them to a proficient level. Now you add on the revolving door, the lack of employee loyalty, the lack of commitment to their job, the wanting more money for doing nothing more than what was being done 5 years ago. I mean, the job hasn't really changed. It's the same sort of thing, but all of a sudden everybody wants $10 more an hour. And for those of you listening that are administrative, I'm not insulting you, please. That's not my point. My point is, as a practice owner, where do we go when these things change? Would you agree with that, Mark? Is that kind of like, if we go forward in time, it's just gotten worse?
Absolutely, yeah. And that was really the genesis behind why we designed the product the way we did it, is that, it's live streaming video, right? So in our case, we had 10 clinics, and the way the system's set up is that each receptionist or PC, whatever, lots of terms for them now, they can all see all the offices live streaming. And so we were able to work 10 clinics with only 4 receptionists because they could multitask. That was the whole gist of it. But again, back to your point too, Brian, on the training, when somebody leaves and you bring somebody else new in, you've got a good 2 to 3 months that they've got to ramp up, and they're going to make mistakes and errors, and it's going to cost you money. And so in this case, if somebody leaves, the rest of the pool could just pick it up and not really, there is no training issues because you don't have to train a new person. And so really, we found that it really helped cash flow considerably.
Yeah, and Wendy, being a physical therapist, sharing the therapy experience between the two of us, not to put you out of that group, Mark, you're totally
I get it.
You totally can hang with the cool kids. I was gonna say, as therapists, we weren't looking for a remote receptionist. I mean, I can tell you that I wasn't looking for, what is that, Regis or these things out there. Oh, and it's not that. Why is it not that? For people who are new to this, like, I know you and I've had this conversation, and you and I have talked to big corporate groups in America who are looking at working with us together. For those of you who don't know, they provide the software, hardware, technology. We provide the personnel training and the administration and application of that. We do all the oversight training. So that's how we work together. And I tell people all the time, this isn't Regis. This isn't a Philippine, nothing wrong with the Philippines or India or anything offshore. It doesn't matter what country I pick. It's not an offshore reception. It's just answering your phone, right?
Correct. It's a full service. That way, the system is actually continually watching your waiting room as if they were sitting there. So the whole gist of the product was designed to have whatever a person can do sitting in front of you can be done remotely. Everything. The only thing we can't do is put paper in the printer and change the toner. But other than that, everything we can print, we can scan, we can move things into the EMR, we can talk to them. They can walk in your waiting room and have a seat in the chair and just think, oh, well, there's nobody here. Wait for somebody to come up there. We will see that. We jump right on and be able to greet them. The patient doesn't have to do anything on their part. And that's kind of the problem with the other solutions. Not that they're bad, but if you go in there and you don't have an appointment that day, it doesn't, oh, you don't have an appointment today. It just says, can't find an appointment. Okay, now what are we going to do? Or, can't check you out because I need an ID to get, to get your wine. So somebody's got to what I call babysit the kiosk. And when we were designing it, I told Mark, you cannot have anybody in the back have to babysit this. Otherwise, we haven't created a solution. The solution has to be full stream. And that's
what I loved about it. And before we ever came together and started working out, I drove up the Roanoke twice. It was 5.5 hours up, 5.5 hours back, all on the same day. I believed you guys saw the commitment in me just doing that. I was right off of surgery. I couldn't even really walk across. You guys were, and I wanted to just say, when you have that infusion, for the listening audience, Wendy's clinical infusion with Mark's ability to adapt and create something that hadn't been created before, because she's like pushing on him. And I love this. When I went to Roanoke and I saw your offices and I saw how it was running, I could see the PT influence. I could feel that this is a PT origin. It reminds me of Heidi over at WebPT. Like, she was like, all these bean counters are creating these things, but this isn't right. This isn't how PTs work. And she created something that's now behemothly and wildly successful. I feel the same way. I don't mean to compare to that WebPT, because maybe that's not a fair, but it is just strikes me as that, because you infused. This has to be PT oriented. This has to be PT focused. This has to achieve the targets, goals, and objectives of a physical therapy clinic. That's why this isn't Regis. That's why this isn't like some of the competing programs that are out there. Because let me tell you, please don't take any offense to this, anybody. But when I was shopping who to hitch to and work with, I was bringing the horsepower of the personnel. The software, I just needed to pick the actual best group, best ethical people who are most adaptable with the best technology. And it's this. It's really this for me. I know there's others, but it's really this. And Wendy, what you pointed out really crosses the bridge of the fear of a lot of people. And what is that fear? Well, Brian, I don't know about this. It's going to lose the personal touch. People aren't going to feel, there's not going to be a human being there anymore. I know my answer to that, but I want you guys to answer that, because you were touching on the live streaming and the big screen and the interaction. I think people need to hear, I don't care if you're 80% Medicare, when we've rolled this out, it has gone nothing but successful in these offices. Why is that? Why is that not really a legitimate fear when they really experience it for what it is?
Because they absolutely do get that personal experience. In fact, like we said, we ran our clinics, and patients would bring them Christmas presents and sit it there. Receptionists. So in the summer, they would bring them vegetables, but they also make comments to them, like they'll say, "Oh, I saw you got a haircut. That looks really good on you." And the receptionist PC is going to make comments to them too. "Hey, I see you got your sling off. Your shoulder must be doing better." So they create those same relationships that they did when they weren't sitting there, because they are sitting there, but just in a virtual relationship. So it is a very personal. You'll have, with your teams there, they have their primary, their secondary. So they may see more than one person, but they tend to see the same people over and over again. And that's the nice thing about the relationship that we have. I tell people, you get a team, not just one person sitting there doing one thing. So if somebody on the team is on the phone, somebody else can greet that patient, instead of the receptionist having, or PC having to say, "Wait a minute, just a minute, when I get off, we can be right there and interact with them." And like you said, that ability to not be a cold kiosk. I mean, what are you going to do with the sales rep that walks in, or a person who doesn't have an appointment that day? They just want to make a payment on their account. Well, there's no way to put those types of things in. You have to have that relationship.
I want to table the kiosk for a minute, because I want to come back to the kiosk. But go ahead, Mark. We'll touch on that a little later.
Yeah, well, no, you make a good point, because there is another dynamic, because we get that question a lot, with, like, think of older patients, are they uncomfortable with this? Mm-hmm. COVID did a lot, okay? And COVID really made this medium. Yep. And so people, they got used to talking to their grandkids or their significant others in this kind of medium. And so they become very comfortable with it. So we don't have pushback from the elderly like we did when we first started.
No. And we don't either. And I can only imagine how it must have been in 2015, 2016. But from 2020 on, post-COVID, I gotta tell you, I mean, what 60-year-old hasn't FaceTimed their grandchildren?
That's
You
right.
know, what 60-year-old hasn't used an iPad or their laptop or, you know, Zoom, right? I mean, Mark, why did we buy stock in Zoom in 2019, right? If we had bought stock in Zoom then, I mean, so I think it's the right place at the right time. I do want to give you credit, Mark, though. You went the extra mile and the extra expense because I know this cost a lot of money to develop, and it continues to cost a lot of money to develop. And I love that commitment to putting your money into it to see it evolve. But you made it evolve so it's live streaming, people. When people walk in that front door, you're seeing them walk in, you're looking at their posture, you're looking at their facial expressions. Our staff on the other side, and I'll be honest, truth be told, I underestimated how much training was going to go into making that staff the profession ready that I really needed them to be. I had a huge staffing company in the 1990s, so I'm very comfortable with staffing. But staffing remotely from your home and having people be in their pajama bottoms, but their professional top, you know, it's not everybody can play that mental game. They start to get a little lax. And so we had to really put a lot into it. But you helped us by making sure that it was live, it was streaming. We could have a team of people, backup one, backup two. You know, putting the little picture in the windows when we need, I mean, the stuff you've done has just made the user friendliness on both ends, the client and our end, so much better. Is there one more where I was leading with this? Is there one more, any other distinction that you could point out which makes Virtual Sally stand ahead of the rest, that stands out from the pack?
I would say it's our patent, and that's what makes our product different than anything else.
Yeah, and also we can control local hardware, which is significant. So
nice.
I won't get into the nuts and bolts and the, you know, how sausage is made here, but it's the way we can actually control local hardware. So you can have a PC receptionist in Timbuktu and your clinic located in Florida. And if they need to print something there at the clinic, they can do that. And that's something that's unique to the way Virtual Sally is built. We can also scan remotely. So that's significant because, you know, not everybody's electronically onboarding yet. I mean, it's coming, but most practices don't, or it's a combination. But so that's pretty significant.
And I think the other thing is our many to many. So like this call is a 1-to-1. So it's a closed call. We don't know what else is happening in the world. In Virtual Sally, the PC can not only see what they're doing, they could be talking on this call, but they can also see any other offices that they are helping out. So people aren't waiting. And I can also, as a PC, see my other colleagues as PCs if they've helped an office. So if I see somebody, I'm talking to you now, but in my peripheral on the right-hand side of my screen, I'm going to be seeing any of the offices that I'm responsible for. So if I see that an office has somebody standing there, I can put you on hold and say, you know, while you're collecting that insurance card, I'm going to be right back with you, and I can get another patient and get them get started. So people actually get taken care of faster because of the system. It's not a closed system. It's the many to many.
That's fantastic. And that's exactly what they need to hear. I think the obvious things, if I'm a practice owner and I'm in the audience right now, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you're taking away my need to do performance reviews. You're taking away my need to match payroll taxes, Social Security, FICA, HR claims. You're taking those claims away. Those threats go away. The cost of hiring, training, turnover. I mean, it's been said it's about 17 to 23,000 with each turnover, depending where you are, with each turnover. The caliber, the consistency is, and then of course the physical therapist who's never run a front desk in their life is now forced to be the manager over staff of people that are doing jobs that they don't even know how to do themselves. So I think a practice owner can grasp those tangible benefits. I think the lack of pay, they don't have to pay PTO, they don't have to pay vacation, they don't have to pay for the I think it's the intangible stuff that's so important. The fact that you can go to bed at night knowing you're not going to get that call at 6 a.m. You're not going to worry about that. You're working with a bigger group. I mean, we've got over 100 employees in 30 different states at this point, and we just keep growing by leaps and bounds. And so it's the training of them. So as an owner, I'm like dialing in here going, okay, so you guys, Virtual Sally's provided me with the advanced technology and software and hardware. Meg is providing them with the staff. At the end of the day, what's my bottom line? Does this work out for me financially? Does it not work out for me financially? You guys must feel that question as much as I do. People are typically willing to pay a little bit more than what they're paying now because payroll costs. I mean, front desk people used to be $15 an hour. I have people in California calling me up saying, hey, they're telling me I can go work at Walmart or something or fast food and make $20, $21. I'm having to pay 25, 24, 26. I've even heard for people to sit at the front desk. So let's talk cost. I know a lot of owners want to know, is this actually a viable step for my practice?
Yes, it is. I mean, when you look at the bottom line of those costs, it actually will come out less expensive this way. And one thing I like to point out when I talk with practice owners is you get a lot of what I call hidden savings. And there are things that when we started this, we knew what we were doing here, but they were add-ons that we got. For instance, once we did this, we took back all that space that the front office occupied. And in some of these clinics, it's a lot of space. So we made that therapy space. So now we have extra billable therapy space that we can use. We also found that our schedules were more full because we got rid of what I call the cabals in the offices. It's where the therapist knows that Mark's going to cancel on Friday, but I want to get out early. So I tell the receptionist, BC, don't fill that schedule. I want to get out early. And when she lives or he lives with them, it's very hard for them to fill that schedule. So they don't. Now you get a loss. Well, as soon as that patient's schedule is canceled, they're going to be filling that with the wait list. So the schedule densities went up. Also, the fact that we're moving things into the EMR at the time of service. So as soon as that comes in, that's going in. So we started billing out twice a day. So our count on that 7, 14, 21 days started a lot faster. So there were so many extra benefits that we got from having this that it goes beyond just the dollars that you spend.
I can't agree with you more. And my response to people are the things that they're not calculating. Like you said, the things that they don't necessarily see. Like, for instance, if I'm a startup practice, well, I need to start up and I need somebody to work my front desk, but I'm only seeing 20, 30, 40 patients a week. Well, how am I possibly going to attract a really talented, highly qualified person to work my front desk who's going to leave their job for 15 hours a week? They're not. You're going to be forking out 40-hour a week pay for people that you don't have 40-hour a week work for when you're a startup. So that this is a prorated scale. I can hire a half FTE, 3/4 FTE, a full-time equivalent. As my practice booms, I can add more staff to my needs. So the economy of scale is built into the way we work together with our clients. So that is a tremendous value savings. People are like, well, how is this possibly going to be on an annual basis less expensive? Well, one of the other things that I'm seeing in our clients is the amount of lost revenue through lack of authorization, timely input of information, inaccurate input of information. Our people are simply better trained and they're held to a higher standard of performance. And because of that, because it's all transparent, you're just not going to be writing off the dollars that you're writing off. And we all know there's two things a therapist should never touch, ever. Every practice owner I've ever coached, I'm like, a therapist should never touch the money and never touch the schedule. Well, in these offices, 71% of all offices are mom and pop, 2 clinics or less. Those therapists get that relationship with that front desk, and the front desk staff's like, uncomfortable, fill it in that slot. I know they're going to want to eat their ham sandwich slower today, and they're looking at that space and they don't want to do it. Or heaven forbid, I put somebody in at their 4 o'clock when it looked like they were going to get out a half hour early. All of that emotional stuff goes away, but at the same time, we are part of their team. We attend their staff meetings. We're there for their parties. We're there. You really do bond with your person. And I attribute that to the way Virtual Sally's made this such a live, interactive streaming thing. It's not Regis experience. It's not like what I've seen in some of the competitors.
Correct. And the thing
does that make you think of any other savings that I'm missing?
That's the big thing, like you said, especially with the startups, or if you want to expand to a new clinic. I mean, the therapist knows what they're doing, but the front person does not. And that can cost you tremendously. So as we grew, when we started this, we had 7 offices and we quickly grew to 10 because we weren't making those mistakes, and they were profitable much faster than anything we started before having this product, because we used people that already knew what they were doing. We weren't making those mistakes.
Right. Well, and think about that going to office. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
But just real quick, something that is significant in your, obviously invest a lot in this, but you also invest in the people ahead of time, because you will train them 3 to 4 weeks before they're ever deployed anywhere. And you train them. So when they get in that office, they know what they're doing. There's no learning curve there. So you invest a lot up front without, having any revenue associated with that employee for a good period.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And, I originally slated this for a 6-month pilot and then a 6-month confirmation of success and cut it loose. The 6-month pilot went 18 months. And here we are, year 2. We're actually, for the benefit of the listeners, we've actually realized that there's such a demand for this product. You guys know, you were at Ascend and PPS and CSM. I mean, your booth is swamped. I mean, you guys, in terms of validation, for those of you listening, just follow the crowd. No one's going to do something or be as excited about something if it's not working. So you see Virtual Sally's booth, you come see our booth at PPS, you come visit us, and hopefully you get to come to our social party as well. Get in with the crowd, get in with the buzz, talk to people about their experiences. Because what I see with this more than anything else is that we're actually able to collaborate together with the practice owner, with you, with ourselves, for the benefit of the experience to the patient. It's a PT focus driven model. So when you talk about investing money, I know how much you guys have done on that side. What we've had to do is, because this is such a human to human kind of thing, we've actually gone out and signed a contract with a software AI avatar service, if you will. And now we're creating an avatar of who is doing the training, and we can have this message be consistent all the time. That avatar is real life human being looking articulate, but we can up the script, up the dialogue every single day and make it consistent for every single person who comes in. So you as an owner, you can actually witness it and stream this all the time. So your staff, it's a view of 1,000 times. Where it was me, I have to shoot a new video, and then something changes, I got to update a new video, get the crew together, go into the studio. We are so advanced. We are so much further ahead of anybody I see on the horizon with our use of the avatar for internal training, professional training, your guys' application of the live streaming, the physical therapy focus driven model. If I'm an owner, I should feel very comfortable and confident calling Virtual Sally. Now, what if I'm an owner and I say, hey, I love my front desk staff member. I don't want to use Meg. This girl's fantastic, but we are growing and there's a lot of distraction. Can I just reach out to Virtual Sally and can you help me position this person at home? And does that work?
Absolutely, we can do that. And I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but if you have people that you really like, but not enough of them, and you want to bring on some Meg staff as well, they'll actually hire your person as well and bring them into the team if they're an A player.
That's right.
They've got a good, they have good options for whatever that you want to do out there. But yes, you can do it with just your staff. We have customers that do all kinds of things.
Yeah, and I wanted to have that conversation here and show people that we're not about procuring business just for the sake of procuring business for us. If you have somebody who's a rock star and you want to send her home and you think with her being out of the office distraction, she might be able to handle an office and a half or maybe 2 offices, and you can get rid of the revolving door at your other office, Virtual Sally is going to work with you. And by all means, they can refer you to us to help you with some training, some setup. You can buy some coaching hours with us. It's not about what goes into our book of accounts. If you need us to help you set that up and you're going to run that all on your own, hey, that's fine. But let's say you say, well, that doesn't save me. I've still got payroll and I still got reviews and I still have risks. That I don't want my person to be unemployed, but we will hire them. We'll hire them. We will put them through the training. We'll still send them home. We'll put them on your account. And we'll take care of the oversight, the management, and everything that goes along with that. So you get the full economy of scale with somebody with somebody you like and trust. We're just going to up their game. We just have to make sure they meet our bar of performance. Not to say that for you owners listening and watching, your bar isn't good enough, but we do have a pretty high bar. We want to make sure everybody. But that's another thing you don't have to worry about as a practice owner. You're not doing the training anymore. That goes away. That's our responsibility now.
And
Wendy Mark,
on that subject, I think what you'll go to is the efficiencies increase significantly, whether they're at home or they're just in a back office, because Well, we want to be personal with them. We all know sometimes that can be the social hour for a patient. And that's hard for the receptionist too, the PC, because, like we're in a room going, okay, it's after, 30 minutes, come and knock on the door, I had to go on. Or the PC's got their phone under the, table trying to go, somebody please save me, because they're unaware that the line is backing up behind them. Whereas this way we can, say, Brian, I'd really like to hear about your daughter's recital, but I got a couple people waiting. So you tell her good luck and I'll see you next time. So we were very friendly about that, but we moved forward that engagement where we needed to. So it will help you to get away from that person actually sitting there. But we do have customers that'll have person sitting there and then they'll be helping another office virtually. But most of them go all the way out of that, getting the value of it all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that leans into what many people have been hearing on my podcast for several months now, is what we call getting away from the fee-for-service practice model and moving into the progressive PT practice model, where it's like a hair salon. You go in and the only person there is the person who's doing the cosmetologist who's working on you or the beautician who's working on you. Nobody at the front, nobody at the back, nobody sweeping the floors. It's all. I believe within 5 years, all PT practices are going to have DPTs, PTAs, and techs, and that's it. I don't think you can afford. So we're going to talk future in just a moment. I think in being fair and balanced with everybody who's listening, let's talk about the potential downsides. What are the risks people are taking? What can go wrong? What would people be like, hey, I've been listening to you guys for 30 minutes and it's all this good news, but with everything good, there's always some, and that's true. I mean, I love my Dodge Ram 1500 brand new truck. It's great, but every now and again, that big screen doesn't turn on when I start the car and I'm like, oh, I gotta turn it off and turn it back on and reboot the system. There's something with everything out there. So let's be honest with people. If they want to hear from us what our experience has been, that can be somewhat of not a problem because there's nothing we haven't been able to overcome, but something that they may have on their mind that they're concerned about, maybe a situation or concern. What would that be?
Well, it's, software, right? So you get Windows updates, you get updates on your cell phone. I mean, it's a
fair enough
dynamic thing, and so you're going to have issues every once in a while, and we're here to fix it. It's a licensing agreement, so you constantly get updates like you do with your Windows, and they're not charged. So we're constantly evolving and building the product. If I had to say of the support calls we get, 90% of them are usually hardware related. The camera, the printer, the whatever. That's generally what you hear. But the software, Wendy always says, it drives me crazy when she says it, but it's appropriate. But she says the product is the worst it's ever going to be today, because we continuously improve. It drives me crazy, the technology guy. But it's,
hey, that's a Tesla. That's a Tesla quote. That's a Tesla quote right there. Yeah. Elon's been saying that for a decade.
That's right. I mean, it's pretty darn good today, but it's we have room for improvement. We will.
Yeah, I mean,
well, fair enough with that.
I will say is that we're committed to a solution for it, because I know what happens. We know what happens when it goes down in the front. It's it's an issue. So there, it's spot on. I would say our commitment to that is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just show people the integrity of who they're dealing with. We recently have come across the situation where early adopters have hardware that is not the hardware we send out today. And we've been in talks and we've been standing behind that, and we're going to resolve that for those early people. That's not on them. That's on us, right? We're moving forward. We're like, yep, there's no way you guys, something 8-10 months ago should be something you're victimized by this now, because, things progress. But that just shows our commitment to seeing the people we work with succeed. We don't envision that in the future because we have a hardware list and we literally drop ship this hardware to you guys. So your concerns about using your own stuff, no. It's got to be tested. It's got to be inspected. It's got to be loaded. It comes to you ready to go. Plug it in. There's a rollout. We've got that all worked out. So for those of you that have that fear, do not have that fear. Second fear I think people have is, well, wait a minute, Brian, this is internet based. What if my power outage goes, a thunderstorm goes by, or how do we function with that? I know what I say. I say, well, I don't know. How do you function now? I mean, if your phones go out and the power goes out, what do you do now, right? So what do you say?
We recommend that they use a battery pack for the power, so that can kick on right away, and then cellular backup. If the internet goes down, that cellular will kick in, and be very progressive with that. The video may have a little bit of pixelation more than it would with a direct Ethernet connection, but it's daggone good for those situations. And, it definitely does the trick.
And that's perfect, because if when I say, what do you do now, is I'm putting it's kind of like when we manage employees, right? In Mega Academy, we say an employee is not allowed to come to a senior or a manager or an owner with a problem without a solution. Right. I'm always like, because if you come to me with a problem without a solution, and the solution doesn't have to be the right one, it just has to be an attempt, then it's just whining, right? I mean, that's the definition of whining. I'm coming to you with a problem, but I haven't put any effort into solving my own problem. So when people say, well, I'm worried about the power outage, I'm like, well, what would you do now? Well, they think through how to solve that and work around. Same thing with this. If a power, you got a battery backup, it clicks over battery backup. Oh, internet's down, flip over to cellular. Everything can be managed, right? Let's say,
I like to say on that too is I tell you what, if I'm going to bet on the internet or at front person showing up, I'm taking the internet. And I will win every time. I can guarantee that.
You're 100% right. I mean, Al Gore started the internet for that level of comfort, right? I mean, that's so. Yep, you got to bank on that. I'm trying to think of, we already bridged the one concern that people have about, well, how do my Medicare people feel about it? But it's warm and fuzzy, and they actually form that relationship. We already addressed that. Trying to think of what other concerns people typically. Most people think it's a kiosk, like at an airport or something like that. Let's talk kiosk. I told you we table that. I have come around to the kiosk idea on a limited scope perspective. Now, you guys may share this, may not share this, but that's what a podcast is all about. We all have our opinions. I like to have the live streaming, virtual Sally, Meg relationship. You have to have that foundation. I just believe everybody needs that live interaction. They need that bonding. I think when you're a bigger, busier practice, you're going to have a line of people. When you have 4, 5, 6 therapists in one office, you're going to have a line of people that are just signing in and needing to go back. They're just coming for their revisit. I personally love that viewpoint of having this live, the more time consuming kind of but the person who's just got to send in and just swipe their card and pay their copay. Kiosks can do that quite well. And I see those working really well side by side. This is where my opinion is. I'm not a fan. At least I can't mentally wrap my wits around opening an office, having 3 or 4 therapists, and having just a kiosk. I just don't see that being the physical therapy, forward-facing customer service that you should have for your patients. What say you guys?
I would say that's absolutely true. We know, because we know there is one big company out there that tried that with just a kiosk, and it was an absolute failure, number one. But number two, we also agree with that because, again, like we said, it's the worst it is today. We know the efficiency that can come with that, but we need that overlay. So we are definitely working very strongly with most of the big EMRs, Prompt, Raintree, Web, PT, in integrating this product so that people that can self-check in will be able to do that. But then let's take the case. Okay, I put my name and my date of birth, so it's going to go to that scheduler to pull my appointment and my financial responsibility. It pulls that over. Well, guess what? My appointment was Friday, not today. So all it's going to say is, can I find an appointment? So now you're dead in the water. They're going to keep beating on the kiosk because right. Of course I have an appointment today. So what we've done in Sally is we've laid that screen over. So the self-check-in is there on that office kiosk, but the virtual receptionist can see that. So if it errors, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then it's going to pop right up and say, oh, Brian, let me take a look. Oh, I see your appointment's on Friday. You wanted to see it. Could we see if they could see you today? Or let's say that it has they don't have an appointment at all, or they want to self-check-in, but I realized that my Friday appointment, I want to change that to 2:00 instead of 9:00. Well, I need a receptionist now. So letting those two things work together is the way it's going to work until it has so much ability to do so many things. We were talking about being able to at your own appointments. And there's a place for that, but there's also a lot of barriers to that. Like we may not want a Medicare patient back to back. We may not want, you don't have any visits authorized. So we don't want you making that appointment, holding a space until we know we can get that visit authorized. You've been to another city. You've used up all your calendar visits for that year. It's done. We've got to set up a self-pay for you. So those things that require a person, we want to make sure we can have that. So a kiosk in itself for a lot more reasons than that, but those are some of the tips on it.
That's what I love, because we early on, for those of you listening again, we came together, in the beginning, Mark and Wendy were doing their thing and problem solving, getting feedback and making enhancements. We were doing our thing, problem solving. And then we said, well, why don't we program develop together? Why don't we share feedback, why don't we get together why don't we have meetings together? Why don't we be in our meetings and your meetings? And let's actually, And so it's so physical therapy oriented. It's so experience driven. You don't go to a restaurant that doesn't have a reputable, history to it, that doesn't have past history of success. So I want to turn this ship to the future, Wendy and Mark. Let's talk about the future. Um, you know, we know how we arrived here. We know how well it's going at this moment. But why is this so essential moving forward, Wendy? You got on it right before we hit record this morning, and I said you gotta tell people that is passionate because I'm not saying all of our listeners aren't doing this, but not everybody's doing this. We are constantly looking at the future. We are constantly saying this is what's coming our way. We have to be proactive, not reactive. What does that mean to you, Wendy? Share with people why this is not just a luxury or a nice addition. It's essential. Like, I don't know how people are going to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with your statement. I think, and a lot of the passion for us, I mean, I obviously said been a PT a long time, and I do not think that we can survive as an outpatient physical therapy practice without cutting our costs. And I share with most of us, we don't want to be the mill. We don't want, 5 patients every 15 minutes. And then we're not providing anything. Like you said, they can get that on the internet, or it's just a mill. We want to have that patient experience, but we have got to bring those costs down some way, or we will not survive, because we're getting another cut from Medicare this year. There's talk from some of the private carriers about they're going to implement the same Medicare cuts that came last year. You put that on top of a 7% last year inflation rate, that's a 15% cut. And the first year we were at PPS, people would come by like, oh, interesting idea. Second year after that 8% cut in the inflation, they're like, oh, gotta have this, because we can't survive as a profession. And it's sad between what therapists have to pay to get into the profession and then what we're able to pay them. We've got to cross that chasm somewhere.
And I want to ask the audience, what are you going to do? I mean, what is your plan if it's not to innovate and leverage advanced technology such as virtual Sally, such as the newbie eSTEM and other things that we've advocated over there? So what is your plan? Like, how are you going to do that? The progressive PT practice model that I keep talking about really brings together all of these components. So catch us at PPS, come to our private session and learn more about that. Because I have to tell you, I agree 1,000% with Wendy. There was a Medicare cut last year. There was the PTA cut. There's a proposal of another PTA cut. There's 2 commercial carriers of the top 5 commercial carriers in the country that are looking to cut. Medicare's looking to cut again. The reimbursement for our services is going down. The cost of labor is skyrocketing. Inflation is at 17% higher than 2021. You go to 2021 January to today, it's a 17% increase with these decreases. If you don't throw away the box, you don't get out of this fee-for-service business model. Because Wendy said it off camera. She's like, so what are PT owners? She wasn't on camera, so she was just ranting. So what are owners going to do? Are they just going to see more patients? Or are they just going to turn it into a mill? I mean, it's just volume, right? Or are they just going to put pressure and just push on their therapists and say, bill more units, bill more units? And my feeling on that, everybody. You guys know I don't believe PTs bill at all. I believe the units represent the care that was giving, and that's it. So what are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to just run faster on the treadmill and hope for the best? Because there's no other place that you're going to economize and squeeze out more net revenue. And it's not more net revenue to be greedy. You got to get a 4-time return on your therapist, or a 3-time return minimally. But if you're not in touch with these business metrics and you don't have advanced technology to leverage to economize, you're going to be eaten up by these costs, and your margins are going to go lower. That means less money for your staff, less money for better equipment, less money to pay the tax man, less money to innovate, to improve the practice, right? It just comes full circle. So I think this is one solution for you all who have been listening. I think this is one solution you should take a serious look at. You guys, what's the website they should go to? How should they best get in touch with you? If they're listening here, they definitely know how to get in touch with us.
Sure, it's pretty easy. Just website is virtualsally.com. So it'll go right there. There's videos there you can watch. Obviously, we do a lot of personal demos quite frequently, and we're working on actually automating that as well, so to make it a little faster. And of course, working with Brian's group has just been amazing, and they're great partners. He's a great friend, and we're excited about what we're going with.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's perfect. And that's how you guys can find them and get more details. Do a demo. Virtualsally.com is the way to go. And my advice to you is come to PPS. You have to come to PPS. If you want to get out in front, there's so much networking that goes on. I mean, we were talking yesterday about our social event at PPS, which I believe is Friday night. I hope I don't have that wrong. It is literally at max capacity almost already. I think it actually is approaching that, but we're reserving tickets for people at PPS to try and bring more invites. So it just shows you everyone's trying to get connected with people that are innovating, that are actually making changes in the industry of physical therapy. Come meet some of those folks. We're not the only ones. We'll introduce you to a whole bunch of other people. We love people from Prompt and the other EMR systems as well. We're not just talking to any old people, but we will help you get connected with what you need. Virtual Sally is a step up. It's going to up your game. It's going to improve your practice. It's going to improve your bottom line. It's going to invest in technology and make you look innovative so people want to come work for you. If you think you have a recruiting problem, this could solve that in a big, big way. Mark, Wendy, thank you so much. I'm very fortunate and very honored for you to spend your time here with me. You could be spending it elsewhere doing a million other things, but here you are helping me help my audience do better. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Absolutely.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And everybody listening, I hope this was helpful. If you want to learn more, you can definitely do a practice assessment call with myself. I can connect you with Nicole, who's the head of that department. We are here for you. We're in business and seeing your business succeed. That's it, everyone. Start each and every day, like I always say, expecting to do well. Don't expect anything less.